I got to the venue early because my brother had asked me to bring 2 garment bags from our mom's house. That was it. I wasn't helping decorate. I wasn't part of some last-minute wedding committee. By then, I'd learned not to assume I was included in anything unless somebody said my name directly. The rehearsal dinner wasn't for another couple of hours, and most of the tables were already set. I was walking past the family table when I saw my place card, Tessa Mercer, right beside Daniel. For a second, I just stood there. Because for the past 4 months, I had been operating under the impression that Rachel wanted me as far away from the center of this wedding as she could put me without making it obvious. But there was my name, next to my brother. Then my mother walked over. She didn't see me. She picked up my place card, carried it across the room, and set it at another table. Not one table over, near the back. The venue coordinator looked up from the seating list. Was that one changed? My mother gave her that calm little smile she used whenever she wanted something to sound already decided. Rachel wanted a little space between them. The girls haven't really clicked. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because there was one problem with what my mother had just said. Rachel hadn't been anywhere near the table, and that place card had already been sitting beside Daniel.
6 months earlier, I thought my biggest wedding problem was going to be finding a Saturday when everybody could actually attend. Daniel's parents lived 40 minutes from us. My parents were 2 states away. One of my bridesmaids was pregnant, another was finishing nursing school. Daniel worked municipal projects that somehow became emergencies, exactly when we tried to plan anything. And his sister, Tessa, worked pharmacy hours that seemed to change every week. I liked Tessa, or at least I wanted to. That distinction mattered more than I understood at the time. We weren't close. When Daniel and I first started dating, Tessa was polite to me in the way you're polite to somebody your brother might stop bringing around in 3 months. She didn't interrogate me. She didn't act territorial. She also didn't make much effort. At family dinners, she usually talked to Daniel about people they grew up with, or some story from when they were kids. I could follow maybe half of it. I would smile, ask a question when I could, then eventually help Elaine clear plates, because at least dishes didn't require 10 years of backstory. That probably should have bothered me less than it did. I work in public library programming. A large part of my job is inviting people to things and accepting that sometimes they don't come. You send the email. You explain the event. You make the room available. You do not chase a grown adult down the street demanding to know why they skipped watercolor night. I carried that attitude into Daniel's family. It felt respectful. It was also one of my mistakes. A few months before the wedding, I asked Elaine whether Tessa might want to come with us to look at flowers. Nothing formal. My friend Lena was coming, and Daniel's mother wanted to see the florist anyway. Elaine tilted her head. Tessa? Yeah. If she wants. She's not really a wedding person. That's fine. I just didn't want her to feel left out. Elaine gave me a warm smile. You're sweet to think of her. I'll ask. 2 days later, she called me. She said absolutely not. I laughed, because Elaine laughed when she said it. Okay? She said flowers sound like her personal version of prison. That sounds pretty clear. She loves you. She just doesn't like all this. I remember feeling relieved. Not because I didn't want Tessa there, because I had an explanation. Tessa wasn't rejecting me. She was rejecting flowers. That was easy.
My mother asked me about flowers once, just not the way Rachel thought she did. I was eating yogurt in the pharmacy break room between shifts when Mom called. Rachel is doing flowers Saturday. Okay, she's taking her bridesmaids. I think I'm going because Daniel wants someone from our side there. There was a pause. Then she added, It sounds like more of a girl's thing. I waited. That was apparently the whole sentence. So why are you telling me? I thought you'd want to know where I was. I looked at the schedule taped to the locker in front of me. I'm working anyway. I figured. And that was that. I didn't know Rachel had asked about me. What I knew was that Rachel was going out with her bridesmaids and my mother, and apparently there was no reason for me to be part of it. I told myself I didn't care. That was something I was getting good at.
The ceremony reading happened about 3 weeks later. Daniel and I were at Elaine's house going through the rough ceremony order when I noticed we still hadn't assigned it. Daniel said, "Tessa could do it." I looked at him. "Would she?" "Why not? Your mom says she hates wedding stuff." "It's reading 3 paragraphs, not releasing doves." I laughed. Then I thought about it. I actually liked the idea. Tessa was his only sibling. Giving her a role felt more meaningful than inventing another job for a friend. I said, "Okay, ask her." Elaine was sitting across from us with her reading glasses halfway down her nose. She looked up. "I wouldn't." Daniel frowned. "Why?" "She hates speaking in front of people. I've seen her give a toast. At your 21st birthday, after 2 margaritas, that still counts." Elaine turned to me. "Trust me. If you ask her, she'll feel obligated to say yes, and then she'll be miserable for 3 months." I hesitated. I didn't want to put Tessa in that position. "Could you just mention it casually?" I asked. "Make sure she knows there's 0 pressure." "Of course." The next afternoon, Elaine texted Daniel while we were eating dinner. He glanced at his phone. "Tessa's out." I looked up. "For the reading?" "Yeah." I tried not to let it bother me. It bothered me. Not because I needed her to read, because by then, I was starting to feel like every door I opened for Tessa got quietly closed again.
Nobody asked me to do a reading. Not Daniel, not Rachel, not Mom. I found out there was a reading because my cousin Mia mentioned it at my aunt's birthday dinner. She said, "Who did Rachel end up choosing for that ceremony thing?" My mother was sitting beside me. She answered before Daniel did. "One of Rachel's friends, I think." I looked at my brother. "What ceremony thing?" Daniel was cutting into his food. "The reading." "Oh." He looked up at me then. Just for a second. Yeah, that was all. There was enough noise around the table that nobody noticed anything strange. But I did. I remember thinking, right, of course. Rachel had her bridesmaids. Rachel had her friends. Rachel had Mom involved because Mom would make herself useful anywhere. And I was Daniel's sister, but apparently that didn't automatically mean I belonged anywhere except the guest list. I could have asked. That is the part I'm least proud of. I could have said, "Did you ever think about asking me?" Instead, I smiled at Mia and said, "Public speaking is not my thing anyway." My mother touched my arm under the table, almost like she was comforting me.
By midsummer, I decided I was going to stop trying. Not dramatically. I didn't announce it to Daniel. I didn't complain to his mother. I just stopped building plans around the possibility that Tessa might want to be involved. When my friends organized a casual lunch after my dress fitting, I didn't ask Elaine whether Tessa was free. When we discussed who would arrive early on the wedding weekend, I assumed Tessa would come, when Daniel's family came. When Daniel asked whether we should invite her to help choose songs for the reception, I said, "She probably doesn't want another wedding job." He shrugged. "Probably not." Neither of us called her. At the time, I thought I was learning to respect a boundary.
The lunch was when I stopped giving Rachel the benefit of the doubt. I didn't even know about it until Monday. My cousin Mia sent me a picture because Mom was in the background holding a glass of iced tea with her eyes closed. The message said, "Your mother photographs like she's being held hostage." I laughed. Then I looked at the rest of the picture. Rachel was there. 3 women I recognized from the bridal party were there. Her aunt was there. Mom was there. I asked Mia, "What was this?" She wrote, "Rachel's dress thing Saturday." I stared at the screen. I had been off Saturday. Mom knew that. She had called me that morning to ask whether I could pick up a prescription for my dad. I put my phone face down. When Mom called later, I asked, as casually as I could, "How was Rachel's thing?" "It was nice." "Big group?" "Not really." I waited. She sighed. "Tess, don't start." That got my attention. I asked how lunch was. "I know you. You get that tone." "What tone?" "The one where you pretend you don't care." I looked around my apartment even though nobody else was there. Was I supposed to be invited? Another pause. Then Mom said, "Rachel wanted to keep it to her own people." Something in me went flat. Not shattered, nothing that dramatic, just settled. "Okay, Tessa, No, it's fine. I told her you wouldn't care. That sentence hurt worse than the first one. I should have asked why my mother was telling Rachel what I would care about. Instead, I gave her exactly the response she expected. I don't.
A month before the wedding, Tessa came to Sunday dinner at Elaine and Greg's house. She arrived late from work, still wearing navy scrub pants, her hair tucked behind one ear. I was in the kitchen slicing bread. She walked in. Hey! That was basically us by then. I tried anyway. How's work? Busy. Your mom said you've been doing extra weekends. Apparently. I smiled because I wasn't sure what else to do with that answer. Then I said, I promise, after September 26th, nobody in this family has to hear the word wedding from me again. She gave a short laugh. That'll be different. I looked at her. There was something in the way she said it. Not exactly rude, not friendly either. Before I could figure out what she meant, Elaine came into the kitchen, asking where Daniel had put the wine opener. The moment passed. Later, driving home, I told Daniel, I think your sister doesn't like me. He kept his eyes on the road. Tessa takes a while. We've been together almost 3 years. Okay. She takes a really long while. I laughed, but I wasn't amused. Daniel reached over and squeezed my knee. Don't make it a thing. That sentence probably shaped the next month more than he realized. So I didn't.
After that dinner, I told myself I had one job at the wedding. Show up, be pleasant, take pictures with my family. Do not give Rachel a reason to tell Daniel I made his wedding about me. That became my rule. When Mom said Rachel didn't need help Friday morning, I didn't ask Rachel. When Mom said the rehearsal timing had shifted, I wrote down what she gave me. When Mom said I'd probably be more comfortable sitting with Aunt Carol and the cousins instead of all the bridal party chaos, I said I didn't care where I sat. I did care. I just refused to make anyone hear it. By then, I thought Rachel had made her position clear, and somewhere on the other side of all those conversations, Rachel thought I had made mine. Neither of us understood that we had barely been talking to each other at all.
The first time Tessa and I almost figured it out, neither of us understood what we were hearing. It happened 3 weeks before the wedding. Daniel and I were at his parents' house, checking the final ceremony order, because his dad had offered to print copies for everyone who needed one. Tessa came in halfway through. She had just finished work and looked exhausted. Daniel was arguing with his dad about whether the processional order mattered on the printed sheet. I was sitting at the dining table with a pen, crossing out things we no longer needed. When Tessa walked past me, I said, At least you got out of the reading. She stopped. I meant it as a joke. A bad one, apparently. She looked at me. What reading? For about 2 seconds, I thought she genuinely didn't remember. The ceremony reading. She stared at me. Then Elaine came in from the kitchen carrying glasses. Tessa, honey, you said you didn't want to do it. Tessa looked at her mother, then at me. There was a strange little pause. Not dramatic, just long enough for me to feel like I had missed something. Tessa said, Right, and walked into the kitchen. I looked at Elaine. She's okay? Elaine set the glasses down. She gets embarrassed when people bring up things she's said no to. That explanation worked because it fit what I already believed. Tessa didn't like wedding attention. She didn't want a role, and now I had apparently embarrassed her by bringing one up, so I didn't follow her.
I stood in the kitchen, pretending to look for something in the refrigerator. There was nothing I wanted. I just needed somewhere to put my face. Because Rachel had said, At least you got out of the reading, like there had been some conversation between us that I had forgotten. There hadn't. Mom followed me in. She lowered her voice. Don't make this awkward. I turned around. I didn't say anything. You had that look. What look? The hurt look. I almost laughed. You told me Rachel picked one of her friends. She did. Then why does Rachel think I turned it down? Mom leaned against the counter. I told her you wouldn't be comfortable with it. That's not the same thing. Tessa. No, seriously, did she ask me? Mom sighed. She asked whether you might want to do it. I stared at her. That was new information. And you said? I said you hate public speaking. I hate meetings where everyone has to introduce themselves. I gave a toast at Daniel's graduation. You complained for a week before that. That doesn't mean you get to answer for me. Mom's expression changed. Not angry, injured. That was harder. I was trying to spare you. From 3 paragraphs? From being pressured into something you didn't want. I folded my arms. I could have said no. Yes, and then you would have worried Rachel thought you were being difficult. I hated that she was partly right. That was the problem with my mother. She rarely controlled something by inventing a completely unbelievable version of you. She took a real piece and extended it until it became a decision. I said, next time, just tell me. She gave me a tired smile. Fine, I left it there. That was mistake number 2. Because one strange conversation with your mother does not automatically mean she has been editing half your life. At the time, I thought she had overstepped once.
The Friday breakfast was the point when I stopped expecting anything from Tessa. It was supposed to be small. My parents had arrived Thursday night. Daniel's aunt and uncle were coming in Friday morning. We were going to have breakfast at a cafe near the hotel before everyone scattered for errands. I asked Elaine on Wednesday, "Is Tessa working Friday?" Until noon, I think. If she can get away, tell her she's welcome. Elaine checked her phone. She probably can't. Still ask. I will. Thursday evening, she called me while I was packing welcome bags. Tessa can't make breakfast. Work? Unfortunately. Okay. She said she'll see everybody at the rehearsal. I said, no problem. And I meant it. Mostly. Friday morning, Daniel's family came. His aunt, his uncle, 2 cousins, Elaine, Greg, no Tessa. My mother asked where Daniel's sister was. I said, working. Then I changed the subject.
I wasn't working Friday morning. I had spent 6 weeks rearranging my schedule because Daniel had asked whether I could leave Friday mostly open. My supervisor owed me a shift swap, so I took it. Thursday afternoon, Mom called. Tomorrow morning is off. I was cleaning my apartment. What is? The family breakfast. Why? Too many people coming in at different times. Rachel said it was turning into a headache. I stopped wiping the counter. Okay, we'll all see each other at the rehearsal anyway. What time do you need me there? 5:30 is fine. Daniel had previously told me 5. I said, he told me 5. Nothing happens until 6. Mom, I'm trying to save you from sitting around for an hour. There was a small part of me that wanted to call Daniel. I actually picked up my phone after we hung up. Then I put it down. Because calling my brother to verify what time his own rehearsal started felt ridiculous. And lately, every interaction around the wedding made me feel like I was one question away from becoming the difficult sister everyone had predicted. So Friday morning, I slept late. Around 11, I opened social media while drinking coffee. My cousin Mia had posted a picture. Daniel was sitting at a long cafe table beside Rachel. My aunt and uncle were there. My parents were there. Rachel's parents were there. There were pastries and coffee, and everyone looked annoyingly awake. I stared at the picture longer than I want to admit. Then I called Mom. She answered cheerfully, "Hi." I thought breakfast was canceled. Silence. Not long, just enough. Then she said, "It changed again." When? This morning. And nobody told me? Well, sweetheart, we knew you'd rearranged your schedule. I didn't want you rushing. I wasn't working. I know. That made me sit up. You knew? You said you had the morning off. Exactly. Mom lowered her voice. I don't understand what you want from me here. I want to know why everyone is having breakfast together when you told me it was canceled. Rachel wanted to keep things easy. What does that mean? It means she already had enough people there. There it was again. Rachel. Always just vague enough that I couldn't accuse her of saying anything specific. I said, "Did Rachel tell you not to invite me?" Mom exhaled. "Tessa, please don't do this today." Do what? Turn every little thing into proof she doesn't like you. I didn't answer, because that was exactly what I was doing. I just didn't understand yet that Mom had supplied most of the evidence.
By Friday afternoon, I was too busy to think about breakfast. The florist was late. One of the groomsmen had forgotten the shoes he planned to wear. My aunt had somehow checked into a hotel 7 miles from the hotel block. Priya, our venue coordinator, was asking for the final seating cards. The rehearsal dinner was being held in the same venue as the wedding, just in a smaller room off the main hall. Daniel and I had already finalized the table plan. Immediate family together. My parents, his parents, Tessa, my grandmother, Daniel's aunt and uncle. It was crowded, but that was intentional. I had considered putting Tessa with the cousins because she knew them better than she knew my family. Then I rejected the idea. Things already felt strained between us. Seating Daniel's only sister somewhere else would look pointed. I remember telling Priya, "Keep Tessa beside Daniel if you can." She made a note. That detail mattered later. At the time, I barely thought about it.
I arrived at 5:10, earlier than Mom had told me, later than Daniel had. The garment bags were hanging over my arm, and I had a box of cufflinks Daniel had left at Mom's house. There were maybe 6 people in the room. Priya was checking table numbers. A server was filling water glasses. Mom was standing near the entrance, talking to my aunt. I carried Daniel's things toward the back room. That was when I saw the seating cards. I wasn't looking for mine. I just recognized my own name. Tessa Mercer. Immediate family table. Beside Daniel. I stopped. It sounds stupid, but I actually checked the name twice. I had spent months telling myself I didn't care where Rachel put me. Then I saw that card and felt relieved. That embarrassed me almost immediately, because apparently I had cared a lot. I thought maybe I had been wrong. Maybe Rachel wasn't trying to push me away. Maybe my mother had been right about me reading too much into things. I set the garment bags down on a chair. Priya left the table to speak to a server. Mom crossed the room. I almost called out to her. Then she reached the family table. She looked over the cards, picked mine up, and carried it away. I didn't move. She put me at a table near the back with 2 cousins, Aunt Carol, and a family friend I had met maybe 3 times. Priya returned. She glanced at the card. Was that one changed? Mom smiled. Rachel wanted a little space between them. The girls haven't really clicked. There are moments when anger arrives fast. This wasn't one of them. First came confusion. Because my name had already been beside Daniel, somebody had put it there. If Rachel wanted me at the back, why had I been at the family table to begin with? Mom walked away before she saw me. I looked at Priya. She looked at me, then at the name card. I said, "Was I originally there?" I pointed toward the family table. She checked the printed seating sheet. "Yes. Who gave you that?" "The couple's final plan." "Rachel?" "Rachel and Daniel, yes." I nodded. Priya looked uncomfortable. "Do you want me to put it back?" I nearly said no. That was my instinct. Don't create trouble. Don't force anyone to deal with your feelings. Don't become the problem. Then I heard my mother's voice in my head. Rachel wanted a little space between them. For once, I didn't want someone else's version. I said, "Not yet." Then I went looking for Rachel.
I was in the hallway outside the bridal suite, counting little envelopes of vendor tips. I had lost count twice. I was starting again when Tessa came around the corner. She walked straight toward me. There was no hello. "Why did you move me?" I looked up. "What?" "My seat." "What about it?" "You put me beside Daniel." "Yes." "And then you moved me." "No." She stared at me. I was tired enough that it took me a second to understand the accusation. "I didn't move you." Tessa's jaw tightened. "Okay." It was the way she said it, like I had confirmed exactly what she expected. I stood up. "No, not okay. I genuinely don't know what you're talking about." "Mom just moved my place card." I felt something cold go through me. "What?" "She told Priya you wanted space between us." I put the envelopes down. "I told Priya to keep you beside Daniel." Tessa didn't answer. Neither did I. That was the first moment the story we had been telling ourselves stopped fitting.
I wanted to think Rachel was lying. That would have been simpler. Except she looked confused in a way I had never seen her look before. Not defensive, not guilty, confused. I said, "You told Mom I should sit with the cousins." "No. She said you thought I'd be more comfortable there." Rachel shook her head. "I almost put you there when we first did the seating plan because you know them better. Then I told Daniel it would look like we were excluding you. I actually laughed once. Not because anything was funny." "Are you serious?" "Yes." "So the reading, what about it?" You thought I declined it. You did decline it. No, your mother declined it. Rachel went completely still. I said, "She told me after the fact that you had asked." Rachel's face changed. When? Your parents' house. 3 weeks ago, after you made that comment. I was told she asked you. She didn't. Rachel stared past me for a second. Then she said, "The breakfast." I knew immediately what she meant. She told me it was canceled. Rachel blinked. What? She said you canceled because too many people were coming. I asked her to invite you. She told me you wanted to keep it easy. I was told you were working. I had the day off. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry with Rachel. I was angry beside her. That was different.
I started listing things, not evidence. Memories, the flowers. Tessa frowned. What flowers? I asked if you wanted to come with us. No one asked me. Elaine told me you said flowers sounded like prison. Tessa stared at me. I was working that day. That's all I said. The dress lunch? Mom said you wanted your own people. I didn't invite you because I thought you hated all of this. Because she told you that. Yes. We stopped. There were too many pieces now. Still not enough for some perfect courtroom reveal. We couldn't prove every sentence Elaine had ever changed. Some of them were probably technically true. Tessa did hate certain wedding activities. I had wanted a small dress lunch. She did work irregular weekends. I did think she seemed distant. That was what made it work. Elaine had not built a completely fake relationship between us. She had kept nudging the real one in the worst possible direction. Tessa leaned against the wall. I thought you couldn't stand me. I said, I thought you wanted nothing to do with me. She looked at me. For months? Basically. That is insane. I agree. You never called me. You never called me. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, Fair. It was the first honest conversation we had ever had, and neither of us came out of it looking especially good.
My first reaction was to go find Mom. Rachel's was too. She picked up the seating list. I'm talking to her. No. Rachel stopped. I surprised myself. No? If you do it, she'll make this about you. Rachel's expression hardened. She moved your seat and blamed me. I know. She lied about the reading. I know. She lied about breakfast. I know. Then why am I not talking to her? Because she's Daniel's mother. Rachel looked irritated. So Daniel needs to do it. That landed. I could see she didn't like it. Neither did I. It would have been easier to walk into that room together, confront Mom with the seating card, and force her to explain herself. But I knew my family. Mom would cry. Then she would say, Rachel misunderstood. Then she would remind everyone how much she had done for the wedding. Then Daniel would try to calm everybody down. And somehow Rachel would end up being the bride who started a fight with her mother-in-law the night before the wedding. I had watched versions of that pattern my whole life. I said, if you confront her, she gets to turn this into you versus her. Rachel folded her arms. And if Daniel does it, then she has to deal with her son. Rachel looked toward the main room. That assumes he'll actually do it. I didn't answer. Because that was the next problem.
We found Daniel near the entrance checking his phone. He looked up at both of us standing together. His face changed immediately. What happened? Tessa held up her place card. Mom happened. Daniel looked at me, then at Tessa. What does that mean? I said. It means your sister and I need you to hear something before you decide how inconvenient it is. He frowned. That was unfair. A little, but I knew him, and I knew what he was about to want. A quiet evening, no scenes, no conflict before the wedding, no one forcing him to choose. Tessa handed him the card. She moved me from your table and told the venue Rachel asked her to. Daniel stared at the card, then looked toward the dining room. She probably thought. Tessa cut him off. Don't. He looked at her. She said, just don't start there. That shut him up. For once. And then, standing in a hallway less than an hour before our rehearsal dinner, his sister and I started telling him the same story, only now we finally knew it was the same one. Daniel listened to the whole thing without interrupting again. That was unusual enough that I noticed. Tessa told him about the reading first, then the breakfast, then the seat. I filled in my side where I needed to. By the end, he was holding Tessa's place card between two fingers, like it had become something more complicated than cardstock. He looked toward the dining room. "Where's Mom?" Tessa said, probably fixing something nobody asked her to fix. Daniel gave her a look. Normally that would have been enough to make Tessa back off. It didn't. He rubbed his forehead. "Okay, I need to talk to her." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I heard myself ask, "When?" Daniel looked at me. "Rachel, when? Tonight? Before or after the rehearsal?" He lowered his voice. "Can we not do this here?" There it was. The sentence I had expected. Not denial. Not defending Elaine. Just a request to make the problem smaller until it became easier to avoid. I said, "This is where it happened. There are people arriving. I know. My parents are here. Your parents are here. I know that too. So, can we get through dinner and deal with it afterward?" Tessa laughed once beside me. Daniel turned toward her. "What?" She folded her arms. "You're doing it." "Doing what?" "The thing where nobody is technically wrong enough for you to have to pick a side." His face tightened. "I'm not picking sides. That's exactly what I mean. Tessa, I just said I'm going to talk to her. After everyone goes home." "Yes." "So she can spend the whole rehearsal still speaking for us?" "She knows you caught her." "No. She knows I saw the seat." Tessa pointed at me. "She doesn't know Rachel and I talked." Daniel looked between us. That was the moment the situation became uncomfortable for him in a different way. Until then, I think part of him had assumed this was another version of the same tension he had been watching for months. His mother said something. His sister took it badly. His fiancée felt rejected. He waited for everyone to cool down. But Tessa and I were standing on the same side of the hallway now. Not against Elaine exactly, against the arrangement. That was harder to dismiss. I said, "I'm not asking you to throw your mother out of the wedding." Daniel looked at me. "I know. I'm not even asking for an apology tonight. Okay? I'm asking you to make sure she cannot keep making decisions for us." He was quiet. I hated what I said next before I even finished saying it. "But I'm not doing it for you." His eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not going to confront your mother, so you can agree with me afterward." That hurt him. I could see it. And some part of me wanted to take it back. The timing was awful. His family was arriving. We were getting married the next day. This was supposed to be the easy part, but that was the problem. For months, I had confused keeping things easy with keeping them healthy. Daniel looked at Tessa. She said, "She's right."
Daniel hated when Rachel and I agreed. I don't mean generally. We almost never agreed enough for him to know. But in that hallway, I watched him realize that there was nowhere neutral left to stand. He said, "You both think I knew Mom was doing this?" "No," I said. Rachel said, "No." He looked almost offended anyway. "Then why does this feel like I'm on trial?" "Because you want the answer to be that nobody meant anything by it." He stared at me. I knew that was harsh. It was also true. Daniel had been the peacekeeper in our family since we were kids. If Mom and Dad argued, he made a joke. If Mom got upset with me, he told me what she probably meant. If I got angry with her, he told me not to make it worse. He was good at calming people down. He was terrible at asking whether the person making everyone uncomfortable should stop. I said, "You don't have to decide whether Mom is evil." His face changed. "I never said she was." "I know. That's why I'm saying it. You don't have to turn her into a monster to tell her she crossed a line." That got through. He looked down at my place card. Then he asked Rachel, "What exactly did you tell Priya?" Rachel answered immediately, "Keep Tessa beside you if possible." He looked at me. "And Mom said Rachel wanted you moved?" "Yes." Daniel nodded. "Once. That was it. No big speech." He handed me the card. "Put it back." I said, "You put it back." He looked at me. I held the card out to him. "If this matters, you put it back." He took it.
Daniel walked into the dining room. Tessa and I stayed in the hallway. That was deliberate. For months, Elaine had been able to frame everything as tension between two women. We weren't going to give her another version of that. From where I stood, I could see Daniel stop at the family table. He picked up the card Elaine had moved into Tessa's place. Then he put Tessa's name back beside his. Priya noticed. She came over. Daniel said something to her. I couldn't hear all of it. Later, Priya told me he had said, "Only Rachel or I can make seating changes from now on. Simple. No accusation. No explanation. Just a rule." Then Daniel went looking for his mother.
I didn't hear the beginning of their conversation. That matters. Rachel didn't either. We were not standing behind a door listening. Daniel told us later what he said, and Mom gave me her own version weeks after the wedding. The parts they agreed on were enough. He found her in a small side room near the coat racks. He closed the door. Then he asked why she had moved my seat. Mom said she thought I would be more comfortable with the cousins. Daniel asked why she told Priya that Rachel requested it. Mom said she was simplifying things. He asked what needed to be simplified. That was where she apparently got irritated. She told him Rachel and I had been awkward with each other for months. She said she was trying to prevent unnecessary tension at the family table. Daniel asked whether Rachel had actually asked her to move me. Mom said, not in those exact words, which was my mother's version of admitting something while still leaving herself an exit. Daniel told her she was done making changes. She said, "Excuse me?" He told her that from that point forward, she was not allowed to change seating, schedules, invitations, ceremony plans, or anything else unless he or Rachel asked her directly. Mom said he was overreacting. Then Daniel brought up the reading. That was when the conversation stopped being about one chair.
Daniel came back about 15 minutes later. He looked tired. Not angry, just drained. I asked, "How did it go?" He gave me a look that said there was no version of the answer I was going to enjoy. She says she was trying to help. Tessa leaned against the wall. Of course. Daniel looked at her. She admitted she told Rachel you didn't want the reading. Tessa's expression didn't change. Did she admit she never asked me? She said she knew what you would say. Tessa laughed under her breath. Daniel continued. She also said she thought the breakfast would be easier without adding another person at the last minute. I stared at him. She wasn't added at the last minute. I asked days before. I know. And she told me Tessa was working. I know. Tessa asked. Did she apologize? Daniel hesitated. That answered the question, he said. Not exactly. Tessa looked away. Daniel stepped closer to us. But I told her it stops. I asked, what does that mean? No schedule changes. No messages between you two. No changing tables. No telling one person what somebody else supposedly wants. And if she does, she won't. Tessa looked back at him. That's not an answer. Daniel closed his eyes for half a second. Then he said, if she does, I shut it down. Immediately. That was better. Not because it was dramatic. Because for once, the responsibility stayed where it belonged. With him.
Mom found me 20 minutes before the rehearsal started. I was at the family table fixing the strap on my shoe. She sat beside me. Tessa, I didn't look up. Mom, I wish you had come to me. I almost smiled. That was impressive, even for her. I finished with the shoe. Then I looked at her. I did come to you. She frowned. When? For months. That is not fair. I waited. She lowered her voice. You know how Rachel gets overwhelmed. I said, no. She blinked. No? No. I actually don't know how Rachel gets overwhelmed. I barely know Rachel. Mom looked annoyed. That's my point. No, that's mine. She sat back. I was trying to keep you from getting hurt. By telling her I rejected things I never heard about? You would have rejected some of them. Maybe. The flower thing? I probably wouldn't have gone. She spread one hand as if I had just proven her case. I said, but I should have been the one to say no. She went quiet. That was the first time I saw that the argument was not really about whether her guesses had been accurate. Some of them had been. She knew me. She knew I hated certain social events. She knew I got defensive when I felt unwanted. She knew Rachel was cautious. She knew Daniel hated conflict. And she had built herself a job inside all of those weaknesses. I said, you don't get to decide what I can handle before I even know it exists. Her face softened. For a second, she looked genuinely hurt. "I'm your mother, I know. I know when you're uncomfortable. Sometimes, Tessa, sometimes you do." She looked at me like I had taken something from her. Maybe I had. Not love, authority. There was a difference.
Elaine came to me next. I was checking place settings with Priya when she approached. She waited until Priya stepped away. "I understand there's been some confusion." I looked at her. That phrase almost made me laugh. Confusion? I think things got interpreted more harshly than I intended. I could hear Tessa in my head, telling me not to let this become Rachel versus Elaine, so I kept it narrow. "Did I ask you to move Tessa?" Elaine pressed her lips together. I thought it made sense. "That isn't what I asked." "No." "Okay." She looked surprised. Maybe she expected an argument. "I didn't give her one," she said. "I hope you know I've only been trying to make this weekend easier." "I believe you think that." Her expression cooled. "It was probably the sharpest thing I said to her all weekend." I continued. "But Daniel and I will handle the wedding decisions now." "I'm aware." "Good." Then I went back to the tables. My hands shook afterward. That part never makes it into stories about boundaries. People always sound calm and certain once they finally say the thing they should have said months ago. I wasn't. I felt rude, ungrateful, guilty, relieved, and still angry, all at once.
The rehearsal dinner was awkward. That's the truth. Mom was polite to Rachel in a way that was somehow colder than if she had ignored her. Dad knew something had happened, but not exactly what. Daniel kept checking everyone's faces. I sat beside him, where I had originally been assigned. At one point, Mom looked at my place card, then at me. I thought she might say something. She didn't. Rachel sat across from me. Halfway through dinner, someone asked how we met. Rachel started telling the story about meeting Daniel at a library fundraising event. She forgot one detail. I knew it because Daniel had told me the story years earlier. Normally, I would have kept quiet. Instead, I said, "You left out the part where he spilled coffee on the donor forms." Rachel looked at Daniel. "He told me that happened afterward." "It absolutely did not," Daniel said. "Tessa." I pointed at him. "You called me from the parking lot." Rachel laughed. Actually laughed. Then she said, "I need to hear this version." It was a small thing. Nobody else at the table knew it mattered. I did. For the first time, Rachel was asking me directly for something about my brother, and I answered her without checking my mother's face first.
The wedding happened the next day. Nothing exploded. No one made a public announcement. Elaine did not confess during dinner. Tessa did not give a speech about family manipulation. Daniel did not threaten to cut off his parents forever. We got married. That was enough. There were still moments. Elaine asked one of the bridesmaids whether the family photos had been rearranged. The bridesmaid told her to ask me. Elaine did. Later, she asked Daniel whether Tessa was riding with the cousins to the reception. Daniel said, "Ask Tessa." She did. Each time, the answer was almost boring. That was what made it powerful. Nobody was punishing her. They were just refusing to let her be the switchboard anymore.
Rachel and I were not suddenly sisters. I want to make that clear. I still thought she overplanned things. She still thought my sense of humor could be aggressive. At the reception, she asked whether I wanted to join a group photo, and I said, "Do I have to?" She stared at me for a second. Then we both started laughing. That helped. But it did not erase months of resentment. Some of those feelings had been based on false information. Some hadn't. We genuinely had misunderstood each other. I genuinely had been distant. She genuinely had stopped inviting me. Mom created the pattern. Rachel and I still helped maintain it. That was harder to admit.
About 6 weeks after the wedding, Tessa texted me. Not through Daniel, not through Elaine, me. She wrote, "Are you free Saturday morning?" I stared at the message longer than necessary. Then I wrote back, "Depends. Are there flowers involved?" She replied, "Absolutely not." We got coffee. There was no big reconciliation conversation. We had already done the important part in that venue hallway. Mostly, we talked about work. Her pharmacy had changed managers. My library was planning a winter program nobody wanted to organize. Eventually, Tessa said, "I have one rule," I said. "That sounds threatening. If Mom ever tells you I said something about you, ask me." "Fine. And I'll do the same." "Fine." She took a drink. Then she said, "Daniel, too." I laughed. Especially Daniel.
Mom and I took longer. She was angry for a while. Not loudly, she became careful, formal. If she heard about plans involving Daniel and Rachel, she stopped offering information unless someone asked. At first, it felt like punishment. Eventually, I realized some of it was probably uncertainty. For years, she had shown love by being involved in everything. Now we were asking her to stay out of some things. She didn't know how to do that gracefully yet. I don't know if she completely understood why what she did was wrong. Maybe she still thinks she prevented problems more often than she caused them. But she stopped speaking for me. That mattered more than winning the argument.
A few months after the wedding, Daniel and I had dinner with his parents. Elaine started telling me that Tessa probably wouldn't come to a family event because of work. Then she stopped herself. Actually stopped. She looked at Daniel, then at me. Then she said, "You should ask her." I said, "I will." Nobody applauded. Nobody exchanged meaningful looks. Dinner continued. And that was probably the most realistic ending we could have had. Not revenge, not forgiveness wrapped up in one conversation. Just a family learning, badly and slowly, that helping someone is not the same as deciding for them.
For months, I thought Rachel had removed me from my brother's wedding, one small piece at a time. Rachel thought I had rejected every attempt she made to include me. We were both wrong, but we were also both responsible for one part of it. We had allowed someone else to become easier to talk through than talking to each other. That was the part we could actually change. So let me ask you this. If someone you trusted kept helping by speaking for you, how many times would it have to happen before you stopped calling it help?